Welcome to Data Founders, a series of interviews with founders of data science startups and experts. Today, I'm talking to Fabian Blaicher, who is a co-founder and the CTO of Shipamax. And Shipamax builds an AI-powered data extraction software for logistics teams. Fabian, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks, it's a pleasure to be interviewed today.
Amazing. So to start the conversation, can you please introduce yourself a bit and maybe tell us a bit more about what Shipamax does?
Yes, I'd love to. So my background is technical. I started my first business when I was in school, like it was like a web development agency. And we won even like a contract from an Airbus subsidiary when I was 18, which was way over our heads. I then went on to study computer science and did like different stints at different universities, like in Germany, also went to Carnegie Mellon University in the US to do some research there. And then at the end, I worked very deep in research. Actually, I worked on speech recognition research, and I worked on the first like Chinese English code switching speech recognizer at the university in Singapore, which was very exciting, was like very high-tech machine learning. It was like over 10 years ago, so it's been quite a while now. After that, my first job was like at Goldman Sachs working in derivatives, and then I quickly moved into commodity trading and worked like in oil trading, and then in chemical fertilizer trading, financial and physical. So I went basically like from super cutting edge high-tech research to super low tech, but loads of money, like people buying like chemical fertilizer like for $10 million on a farm in Kansas if it's starting to rain. So it's like two very different experiences, but very, very good preparation for my experience as a founder. And after the work in commodity trading, I started my startup together with my co-founder. And right now I'm the CTO of Shipamax. We raised our Series A last year and grew the team last year from like 13 people to 26 people. Right now I have a team of, I have 3 teams. I have like the web engineering team. It's quite cool. It's like people like from Google, from Facebook. They build like APIs, ERP integrations. And then, of course, like a product management team with like a head of product. He's very, very great. And then also like another product manager. And of course, the data science and machine learning team, which is also just like super talented, like people with like PhDs in computer vision, machine learning, and we have like 5, 10, 15 years experience post PhD. We also have like a junior from Cambridge, but it's like overall quite a cool team. And maybe taking a step back and looking, what do we do now? So what we do right now is we automate data entry for logistics companies. So like logistics companies, they get a lot of like documents for shipments. So think of a container with electronics getting loaded in China on a truck, on a train, in a warehouse, on a container ship, on an airplane, and you get a lot of like documents like bills of lading. This has been loaded, or this has arrived. Can you take this container from a warehouse? Can you pay for the truck? Can you use this documentation to fill out the Brexit customs declarations? It's like right now we're like super busy because of Brexit actually. We automatically read this documents, we get the emails from the customers, we extract the emails and the attachments, and then we automatically extract the data and make the results available via API or via ERP integration. And I guess like one thing which is interesting about us, like we really focus on like offering like an end-to-end solution for the customers. So for example, companies maybe like UiPath, they do like one bit, but like we offer like the whole platform. So like getting the data, training the data, automatic, extracting everything, specializing on logistics, language, and context. I mean, also like integrating into the ERP systems, but also having like some kind of like exception manager with UI. So it's very comprehensive for logistics and end to end. And yeah, and also we raised a good amount of money, which is also quite cool.
Yeah, yeah. And you opened a gateway towards a very interesting topic, actually. Probably the one that we didn't discuss a lot with our previous guests, because I guess you are the first CTO on the program.
Yes.
So that's a technical team and how to grow it. You mentioned that you have actually 3 teams uh, in Shipamax. So maybe you can tell us a story of scaling actually and point towards maybe the most important things and bits that you learned from scaling your team from probably just yourself towards these wonderful 3 teams.
Yes, no, no, absolutely. I love to talk about that. And I think it's actually really interesting. And I think it was like a good learning experience. Definitely no one prepared me for. Um, in the beginning, it was just my co-founder and me, and like I was doing all the technical parts, like the machine learning, the websites and everything. And then we hired, after Y Combinator, we had like one machine learning engineer, like he had worked in a industry university joint research lab, and then he joined us. And then we had like 2 people working on it. And then like we grew, and then like the year later, we had like 4 people working on it. And then the year later, we had like 8 people working on it. And what we saw is you have like all these like academic, very smart people, which are like really strong specialists, like in machine learning, computer vision, natural language processing, but maybe they're thinking not so much about like processes. Like when we had like maybe 2 people working on a code base, the processes were easy, right? You know what the other person's doing without talking about it. You know, if you make a change, you know everyone else's change really. But then when we grew like to 2, 4, like I think really grew like from 2 to 4 people, we really felt there was like a problem. Like it's someone added some code, but because we have a data extraction pipeline and had like an impact on someone else. Um, and then maybe it broke something. We had some evaluation, but we caught it. But it was just the problems were coming back that like one person impacted than the other one.
Mm-hmm.
And what we did was we just did like a brainstorming session. We did a brainstorming session and we just drew the whole product on a whiteboard, and also like the also did a bit of brainstorming session about the processes. And I'm going to come to a few examples in a second. And then we looked at the product, we looked at the code base, and we said, well, we need to refactor the code so it's more modular, so people can work in parallel and on the same on different things with being confident that you don't break anything or fuck anything up, right? You don't want to do that. And so, for example, what we did after this brainstorming session, looking how the code looks, how the processes look. For example, we set aside some time to refactor the code, to split it up in like modules so that people can work very well separately on it. But also, what I'm sure like a lot of data scientists or like academic people are aware of, if you're in academia, you like try to hack code to get out code for a paper, for your thesis, for your PhD, and maybe the code quality is not like really high. And we also saw that that has like some impact that for some people was more important, for some people was less important. So for 1 month, the head of the, like by then we were a team of 4 people. We dedicated one person had to review every pull request and like instill like higher quality for the code. And of course, then we also like we split up and like looked at like make sure that we have like enough automated testing. So like scaling like from one academic to like more people, more academics, while making a commercially successful product. I think it was very interesting, like really analyzing and taking a step back really helped us. And now like now later now we have like 8 people. Now things work just much smoother.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned interesting thing about testing automation. So it's something that I would say should come up quite early. What I also, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm here not on my territory, I'm not a technical person. So what I also hear that people start quite early to build some shared tools, maybe abstractions, etc., to reuse them. When do you think the right time to invest in these kind of things beyond automation? Maybe something else, something industry specific, something company specific, like, I don't know, like Google created MapReduce, for instance, like an abstraction, right? when a technical team, when a data science startup should think about automating more than code review?
I definitely want to say like this really depends on every company.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on the company, depends on the team. I think there's unfortunately no golden rule. And I think what like if you manage a data science team, it's good to like sometimes set aside some time and look at like what do people spend time on. And look like how long does it take. So for example, at some point we noticed like we have a lot of like, now we have a team of like, I don't know, 8 data scientists, and we have a lot of data, and we sometimes get data labeled externally, but like correcting the data which comes back, because it was not always high quality, takes sometimes days of like very, very expensive, very smart people. So we hired like a dedicated person just to check the data quality within the company. But it's also important not to just listen what, like someone listens to your company, what you do for like 5 minutes and then starts giving you advice. Actually, one of our, it was like someone who worked very briefly for us in the beginning said, oh, you automate this.
Yeah.
And now 5 years later, we still haven't automated it, and it's fine. It's just you as a leader, like you need to figure out what's the problem. Like you take the ideas and then you think what's sensible for you.
There are some heuristics maybe, or frameworks that a founder may use to prioritize that, to look at the things that are happening and to select a few to automate. Maybe there are some frameworks, I don't know. Or it's more like continuous research, just analyzing and reflecting on what you're doing.
I think it's two things. So it's like obviously like dedicating time to improving processes. Yeah, like everything takes time. You think, oh, so quick. You need to dedicate time in your calendar, block time in your calendar, maybe an hour every 2 weeks. And then say, okay, I'm gonna look at what has the team be doing, but also speak with everyone in the one-on-one. So it's like, introspective analysis, speak with the team, but also actually what I also found, especially in the beginning, now I spend less time on it, but like maybe read blogs, or even better, like speak with other people about how they run their teams, and then you just pick the ideas what work. And also you can do that while you're interviewing people. Like if you interview data scientists, let the candidates explain you how they work, and then you can see what are you doing better, what are you doing worse, and then you can benchmark yourself.
Interesting life hack, actually. And let's speak a bit more about hiring, especially these first hires when you quadrupled yourself basically from 1 to 4. There is a bunch of associated questions there. So how you can find these people, how you can source them? Is it your personal network, or maybe you use some agencies or some other sources? And then what things did you pay attention to? When were you hiring these people?
Good question. Unfortunately, things have changed. I'm gonna explain you why I say unfortunately. So I think I've interviewed like 1,500 people since I started Shipamax.
1,000.
Yeah, over 1,000. Yeah, 1,500. And when I started, or when we started off, it was good, or was easy to find people on like AngelList. We hired quite a few data scientists, machine learning people from AngelList, because when they're there, they're interested in working for a startup, right? So that's already like the first step. Like, but I think in the last 2 years or 3 years, hiring for data science machine learning has become super competitive. Like there are million startups, like there are big companies hiring, and you just, as a small company, don't have a big footprint.
Yeah.
What I found is reaching out to people works maybe if you want to hire at one time for like 1 or 2 people. Just like looking on AngelList, looking at like hiring platforms like Hired or Snap or something. But then like when we needed to really grow the team, for example, after our Series A, like it was clear that's not going to scale, right? If I want to double the data science team and the engineering team and the product team, I can't, like we don't have an HR team. And then like we use like a lot of, or we use like external recruiters. I think it's very important, like when you hire, like you align expectations about like what do people want to do, how much they want to earn, and I think like getting someone with a really good attitude is very important, but I don't have a hack for it. I just want to say that, like trying to find someone with a good attitude, but also I think especially with data science, I thought about that recently, is data science machine, you definitely want people with experience, like as a startup, because you don't have a lot of time to train them. Like people need to get the ground running fast. So you want people, and I think with data science is funny, you kind of pay people for their time spent doing things which didn't work. Right? With like natural language processing and computer vision, you just need to learn what doesn't work. And there are just some very few things which work. And even if you, let's say you do like a data science bootcamp, you learn maybe the things which work, but you don't understand why they work. So I think like getting experience, getting good attitude, you can test for experience. Attitude is a bit more difficult.
And it's very important to highlight that really in this fast-paced startup world, there is not much time to learn. That's absolutely right. And I'm curious, what's your view on kind of not learning people, not teaching them, but maybe on the induction? Because I guess regardless of the experience, a person needs to study the code base or style that you guys use when coding. Do you think there are some options to optimize that, or it's more live and custom process?
I think there are like very many aspects to what you just said, to like learning and to like introduction. I guess what I want to say, for example, in our case, we do like machine learning for logistics, and we expect people to know about machine learning, about software development. We do not expect people to know about logistics. There are probably some people in the world who know that, but it's also for sales. Like we never look for logistics skills, never, because that's easier and quicker to teach. With the learning, like what we do is we have like 2-week intro plans. Like we're a small company, so like we don't have like HR teams which can do like brainstorming for half a year for something. But like we have like 2-week introduction plans where you have like an intro session about the company, an intro session about values, an intro session about like with a product manager who really guides you through. But what we also have is, apart from this 2-week plan, which gets you a bit started with like the different teams and the products, it's like a 30, 60, 90-day plans with like things what you should learn, for example, about the industry, but also about the code base, but also what you should deliver. And so we, like every like engineer or data scientist who starts, we will have like a very small task lined up for the first week. Because like it's impossible to deliver something great for like a new code base in the first week. It's not possible. But the best way, I think, is like learning by doing. So just like doing something small, working together with the team in the first week, and then like I think we usually have like 3 tasks for the first 2 weeks or something. So like one really, really small one. It's probably like a line change or like a comma change or something. Like learning by doing, but also like having something institutionalized that you know, okay, you have a new start, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to do that.
Nice. I guess sometimes people really lack this structuring or separating something in small bits, and things become messy when there is no clear separation. And I wanted to touch on the topic associated with the way how a technical team, or more precisely a technical co-founder, interacts with non-technical ones. Because sometimes I see that there is a kind of wall between commercial world and between data science world, specifically if people like research. If this data science is about research, then it's like a huge wall. How do you see the interaction? How do you see your personal involvement into other aspects of business other than technical?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think especially for people like who are at the beginning of their startup journey, this is actually a very important question. I think what is obviously, I would say like I'm a tech person, like I have a tech background, I work very deep tech, even though I did some commercial things. But it's good to talk to customers, especially in the beginning. You like reading the support tickets, what comes in, what does the customer want, join or maybe even do some sales calls yourself, some very early sales calls, be able to explain what are you actually doing, what is your company doing, and but then what that gives you is it gives you, if you speak with the customers, it gives you an insight about the individuals using your product, and then sometimes you'll be able to find like a technical solution to one of their problems, which for you is obvious. But if like a very businessy person who doesn't have like a lot of technical understanding would see it, they say, oh, this sounds very difficult. But you as a technical person, you're like, this is like, okay, this is like one line code. So I think you understand the customers, you understand what they want, what their mindset is, like, do they like their work? Do they just want to go home to their family? But also understand the companies you're selling to, or like the individuals, right? The groups, right? Maybe as many people learn is that you have like users of your product, which are different to the people who sign the check and pay the invoice. Like three people, like maybe the economic buyer, the user, and then the finance team. And understanding these dynamics of the customers, I think is quite cool. And it helps you as a technical person. And in the beginning, you can talk to people. Now, if you grow as a company, you're probably not going to be on sales calls a lot. You're not going to doing like a lot of support stuff. You're probably going to like read notes of like some of the customer success team, of the product management teams who like their job is to speak to the customer. But also, I guess what you also said about the founders. So I think, I personally think if you have a technique, like someone who's good at technology and someone who's good at business, is good founding team. It's kind of a no-brainer, but it definitely for us. So I'm technical. My co-founder, she's since the beginning, she's a CEO. She's been doing like the sales and the business side from the beginning. I would say like this lack of understanding of technical, non-technical people is not like a massive problem in our case, because in the beginning of my co-founder's career, Jenna's career, she also worked like in a quant team, like at some point. So she also built like some models, some statistical models as a developer. So she didn't do it for a long time, but she understands like some intricacies. But I think everything, what like a founding team kind of would look like, if it's like a technical, non-technical, even too technical, is good if you can trust. Like, and to give you an example, what I mean by that is, I'm looking after the technical side and my co-founder looks after the business side. And sometimes I see things which I think that doesn't look right. Yeah. But I take a step back and say, this is not my remit, right? I trust her. It's her job. She thinks about it 24 hours a day. I trust she will do the best thing for the company.
Yeah.
And also like communicate, like especially like with like deep tech. Sometimes things either take really long or are really difficult, or both. And like you tell your customer, oh, you can do it, you can start in like 2 weeks. Does the salesperson say, and the tech person says like, this is no way. So I think then communication, like as a technical person, you need to be able to communicate what can be done, what can't be done, but also ask, right? Also ask the salespeople, like, what do you need? Like, how can we work together and improve it? So I think maybe like if you technical, non-technical, like have a good foundation of trust, or trust your co-founder, and also like really communicate and explain your thoughts, maybe like why you see things in a way.
Nice, nice. It's very interesting to learn your perspective on non-technical things, and obviously I have more questions on that. Just to be cautious of your time, how much time do we have? Just not to put you in a huge stress because of that.
I think we can just go on. I think I have a bit more time.
Yeah, okay, cool. So maybe I would like to look a bit more on your experience with the fundraising. I know that you guys graduated from YC. You deal quite a lot with non-European, but also American investors. So what were probably your learnings from that?
Yeah, I think overall we were very successful with fundraising, I would say. But there was like a lot of work and a lot of failure behind it. When we started off, my co-founder had worked at like two startups in London, like at Zuna and Go Cardless. Like Go Cardless has like 500 employees now, and she worked there like at 30 employees. And because of her background, we got meetings with nearly all good London VCs in the first 2 months of starting Shipamax. And there was a very humbling experience, because we all got meetings because of Jenna's background and Jenna's connections and introductions from like the founder of like Hiroki from Go Cardless and stuff. We met these investors and they all said no. they all said no. We were like super excited of meeting them, but we learned very quickly the hard way that maybe there's a bit more to it. And then we went to like a startup accelerator in the US. It was not Y Combinator. We went to a different one, a logistics one first. And we got some money, and even better, we could get some angel investors. Because we said we're going to the US. Like if we're going to come back, like the price is going to triple like in 2 months. So like creating like a fear of missing out, FOMO, was very good by doing that. And this accelerator was not the best experience for us. And then someone else said, "Hey guys, you should go to Y Combinator as accelerator." And we're like, not sure. And Jenna, she just ended up going to like some Y Combinator because we were in the US. She went to a Y Combinator event and was like presenting at like a startup school event, like in Mountain View. And after the presentation, like the YC partner says, "Hey, you need to apply to YC. You need to apply to YC." And she came back and asked me, "Hey, we just had like this not so great accelerator experience. Like, not sure we should do this." But we spoke with a lot of people, and they all said, every YC founder said, YC is the best thing you can do. And then we went there, and it was wonderful. It was super good. They have a lot of experience. And then we were like in Silicon Valley, and like we met like Sequoia Capital. We met every company, every fund which is worth anything. And I think what we saw is if we compared like the European scene, even European investors versus like the American investors, there are like, first of all, there are a lot more funds. And the result of that is generally like it's much more competitive. And also generally, I think like US funds have a much higher risk appetite than UK funds, but especially like continental funds. Like we had spoken with some German investors, and they turned out to be very conservative, like probably easy to get funding for like a last mile delivery thing, because like you see cash flows from the beginning. But if you want to do machine learning enterprise software, where just like building the software is going to take a while, the European investors and the German investors, they struggle a lot. And US investors, they have more experience with investing, so that was much better. But long story short, I recommend everyone to raise money in Silicon Valley. That's what I would, but I would also say, do not start with funds, start with angels, right? It's like the sales process. You have like one guy who invests his own money, and he says, okay, I like you guys, I'm going to give $100,000. Like in one case, we had one investor, like after 20-minute phone call, he wired us $100,000 on the next day. And then getting some angels, and then you can start building your product, and then you can go speak with investors.
Dealing with all these angels, did it come through accelerator, I mean YC, or you done your own job finding, identifying these guys, talking to them prior to YC?
Sorry, the angels?
Yes, yes.
So we had kind of like two angel rounds. So like the really, really, really early angel round, it was friends and former managers. So like I have some former managers of my company invest. Jenna's had some former managers of her invest, and some friends who happen to have money, and that's how we first started. But then when we did like the bigger angel round, it was through introductions. Like it was like some other founders introduced you, and I think that's really how it started. Like introductions from other founders. And then like if you have like some angels, they usually have like a lot of money, a lot of investments, so they say, oh, speak with this investor, speak with that investor.
Yeah. And you mentioned YC, that it's a great experience. What kind of things can you get out of that? Maybe one or two things that are the most important in your opinion that a technical team, not very strong technical startup, I mean, may get from there? Because I guess expectations are different. Somebody who does consumer tech will get something else from YC. Somebody who does advertising, something else. And in your case, or in the case of a really data heavy startup, data science heavy startup, what you can get from Y Combinator?
I think what they do is they make you pick a metric in the beginning, and then you optimize the growth over 3 months for this metric so you can look good to investors. But it also forces you as a business to really focus what you're doing.
Yeah, I guess the level of introspection and kind of level of reflection that we see from startups that go through leading accelerators, YC among them, is really quite a thing. I have some YC startups in my angel portfolio, and obviously talk with them a lot. Introspection and reflection.
There's also a lot of peer pressure because you meet every couple of weeks in small groups with founders, with maybe like 4 or 5 founders or 10, and like 2 YC partners. And you present what your progress was in like the last 1 or 2 weeks. And you don't want to be the sucker.
Yes, absolutely. This pressure might be good at some point. Okay, good. So just not to keep you here for too long, maybe last question. We talked about technical scaling of technical team, about fundraising and some other things. But if there is anything that we missed, if there is anything that you believe should be discussed, but we just didn't talk about that, let's cover it right now before we close.
I think like already like gave like some overview, and there's always like so much to talk about really. I think what I mentioned earlier is really important, is that sometimes you need to take a step back and like really look at what the problem is. And maybe if you can rephrase the problem, the solution is really easy. Sometimes the problem you have in mind in the solution is not the right solution. Sometimes just like take a step back and think like, what is the core? What does the customer want? What is the technical problem? It's so easy to get stuck up in the day-to-day in the small issues, but just like regularly take a step back and like in small tasks, but also like on a yearly basis. Or that's I think that's very important.
And, how did it work for you? Did you step back and, for instance, collected more feedback, talked with different people outside of your, let's call it bubble, or it was more about introspection, reflection, kind of you stepped back, go to a dark room, sit there, and then idea came. How did it work for you? And maybe there is a kind of a way or maybe approach that you apply right now to make this step back.
So I just have I have like a to-do list of things which come in from someone else, but also like some things I notice. Like sometimes I see like, okay, maybe like building X took a long time, and I just make a note. And then like every 1 or 2 weeks, I just sit down and go through the list and say like, why is that? What can I do about it? Should I speak more with the team? Can I do some research? So just like having a list and like just revisiting the stuff. And sometimes the solutions in the team, sometimes is you ask your investors. We speak a lot with our investors and ask them for advice. It really depends on the task.
I see. So someone should be flexible about that.
Yeah.
How to provoke this reflection, how to provoke this thinking outside.
Yeah, but just like set some time for you and on a daily basis keep track, like have a notepad and then like put on your to-do list.
Amazing. Thank you, Fabian. I guess we covered a lot of interesting things.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we will hear a lot of good news from you and from Shipamax soon. Looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter.